and
Good to go.
streaming.
Okay, we'll give it a second here. I think we are ready. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the Birmingham City Commission meeting of January 25th to order. Could you please join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Justice for all.
Thank you. Let's see. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Boutros,
Here
Where?
in Birmingham, Michigan. Thank you,
Mayor
Commissioner
Pro
Host.
Tem Long,
Here in Birmingham, Michigan.
Commissioner Baylor,
Here in Birmingham.
Commissioner Hoff,
Here in Birmingham.
Commissioner Host,
Here in Birmingham.
Commissioner Nikita,
Here in Birmingham, Michigan.
Commissioner Sherman.
Here, Birmingham, Michigan.
All right, thank you, Alex. With that, we go our next item in the agenda, proclamations, congratulatory resolutions, awards, appointments, resignations and confirmations, administration of oaths, introduction of guests and announcement. I stated in our long-range planning meeting on Saturday how thankful we are to Mr. Doug Kochik for his service in the city for 30 years. And we want to congratulate him on his retirement. I hope he's make every moment of it as a fulfillment joy as he earned it. Congratulations, Mr. Kochik, on that. Second, our next item on the agenda is open to the public for matters not on the agenda. At this time, I'll invite any public comment. I'm looking on my screen to see if there's any hands. Eric, could you help me with that? I do not see any hand.
Do not see any hands.
Okay, with that, we go on to our next item on the agenda is consent agenda. All items listed on the consent agenda are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion and approved by a roll call vote. There'll be no separate discussion of the items unless a commissioner or citizen so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the general order of business and considered under the last item of new business. Commissioners, any items would you like to be removed? Commissioner Hoff, go ahead, please.
A, please.
A, please. Okay, any other items would like to be removed by any other commissioners? By the public? Okay, can we entertain a motion, please? Commissioner Sherman.
I'll move the consent agenda excluding item A.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Hoff. Commissioner Hoff, go ahead with, as you pulled item A, go ahead, please.
How about we have the vote first, Mr.
Sure.
Mayor?
Yep, let's call the roll, please, Alex.
Commissioner Sherman,
Yes.
Commissioner Hoff,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Long,
Yes.
Commissioner Baylor,
Yes.
Commissioner Host,
Yes.
Commissioner Nikita,
Yes.
Mayor Boutros.
Yes, thank you, Alex. Commissioner Hoff, go ahead with item A, please.
This is just a very brief error that I saw on page 10, and probably I caught it because it refers to me. Commissioner Hoff complimented, what's CP?
City Planner,
City Planner Dupuy's letter to the residents. I did, but that was mentioned. It pertained to the item on page 5. It was of the minutes and it was reported there, and then it was duplicated out of order on this. So it should be deleted here on page 10, and it is already
Okay.
in page 5. And
Okay.
with that slight change, I move approval of the minutes as corrected.
Second.
Okay, seconded by Commissioner Sherman. Any comment on the motion by the commissioners, by the public? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Hoff,
Yes.
Commissioner Sherman,
Yes.
Commissioner Baylor,
Yes.
Commissioner Host,
Yes.
Commissioner Nikita,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Long,
Yes.
Mayor Boutros.
Yes, thanks, Alex. That concludes our consent agenda business for the evening. And now we go to our next item on the agenda, unfinished business. Item A, under unfinished business, it's a resolution to recommend that the City Commission authorize the release of 14 plots available in Section C, Row 18A for sale in Greenwood Cemetery. Furthermore, the City Commission directs the Greenwood Cemetery Advisory Board to evaluate the gravesite pricing and return with recommended changes prior to any further release. With that, I think I either have Mrs. Pilak with us on that, or not sure, our city planner, Brooks Cohen, who is giving us some background here. Alex, you?
Yeah, I'll speak on it.
ahead.
So I've been working really close with Sherry Arcombe and the Greenwood Cemetery Advisory Board. And we are still looking to get more graves released to have more options for people that are interested in looking for grave plots. And I want to assure the commission that with the increased communication and coordination with Sherry Arcombe and me being involved in leading the Greenwood Cemetery Board now, that we're on track with all of our data. We have a good plan coming up of all of the projects we're going to be tackling. The board's going to be meeting regularly every month and tackling all the issues that they want to be tackling. As far as evaluating the prices, more discussion and research on GPR, looking at rules and regulations for the cemetery to make sure what we have is still in line. So with that being said, and with us getting on the right track now, we are requesting this grave release to get a little bit more flexibility for those residents and people looking for their final resting place at Greenwood Cemetery, just so that we have more than 10 spots in one row available. As of right now, nothing from the previous release has been sold, but there's 5 families that have been looking. So we just want to make sure that with this grave release, we have enough that would be available so that we would never have to turn someone away, while we still have time to do our research on all the other projects that they're looking into, so that we can get coordinated and get on track with that.
Thank you, Alex.
Mayor, quick interruption. I'm
Go ahead.
sorry. Closed captioning. Do we have closed captioning enabled? Is there somebody closed captioning? If not, hearing is an option.
Eric, can you respond?
Tom, you're muted. Eric, can you respond to that, please?
I'm sorry, what was that? I was dealing with a resident issue.
Commissioner Baller, go ahead with your request, please.
Closed captioning does not appear to be enabled.
I am working on that right now. That's what I was just told. So I'm bringing that up as we speak. Actually, Alex, can you turn closed captioning on? And
Yep.
do we have the closed captioner in the system?
It is Annette, so let me find her real quick. Oh, no, it is Katrina, so I need to find her.
There she is.
Okay, it should be on now.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Baller, for bringing that up. Okay, with that, I'll bring it back to the commissioners, please, for any questions for our clerk. Commissioner Hoff, go ahead, please.
Well, I'm not going to dwell on this because I mention it every time, but I will say, you know, I'm not going to say one last time, but the focus of the Greenwood Cemetery has been on the sale of new grave sites. And these are the grave sites that were created in the grassy walkways of the historic sections B and C. If you look on the diagram, you will see the spacing of the grave sites and how different it is in D through M. And that's the way it used to be in B and C until it was determined to place graves in the aisleways between the new sites, and that's what's being sold. I don't think we have any choice at this point but to approve the sale of more graves sites in that area in C. But what I would like to see, and I think Alex mentioned it, that there's going to be some consideration of a focus instead on determining the availability of originally plotted graves in sections D through M. D through M, we have been told, are totally sold. But do we know, are they going to be used? Is the family still aware of the purchase of those grave sites? And the spacing is so significantly different between B and C and the rest of the cemetery, where the new graves are being crammed in between others with flat stones, no monuments, because to preserve some of the look, but it also is making it impossible to plant to do additional landscaping, trees, shrubbery, and to enhance those areas instead of cramming in more grave sites. So I present that. I don't think that there's much we can do tonight, but I would just like to suggest changing the focus from trying to get every inch of that space in B and C sold to look in sections D through M and determine what might be available. Thank you.
Well noted, Commissioner Hoff. Thank you. Any other comments or questions for, go ahead, Commissioner Host. Sorry, I'll be back to you with Commissioner Baller.
You know, I believe the Greenwood Board's going to meet February 5th on a Friday. So I'm hopeful between Alex and that board, we'll have something presented to us on February 22nd. And my hope will be that we can enact some of what Commissioner Hoff has said. Certainly the basis for it is the penetrating, you know, the ground penetrating radar in all those sections. And as such, I would encourage all of us to want to find out how many plots are available and then go from there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Host. Commissioner Baller, go ahead with your comment.
I'm good, thanks.
You're good, all right. Any other comment, questions for Alex from the commission? Seeing none, from the public? I see none. May I entertain a motion? Commissioner Host, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to recommend the release of the 14 plots available in Section C, Row 18A for sale in the Greenwood Cemetery.
Awesome. Second?
Second.
Seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Long. If you don't mind, Commissioner Host, as you started reading, I would suggest that you either read it all or move the resolution as is.
No, I would like to add the following. Furthermore, the City Commission directs the Greenwood Cemetery Advisory Board to evaluate the grave site pricing and return with recommended changes prior to any further release.
Yep. Thank you. And that I already seconded. This is just for clarification. It's not an amendment. It's the same resolution we have in front of us. Okay, with that, any comment on the motion? From the commission? Seeing
Andrew
none?
Haig. Nope,
From the
we have
public?
Andrew Haig.
But yep, I haven't got to the public. Thank you for enforcing that too. Sometime I miss it too. Mr. Haig, go ahead with your comment on the motion, please. We have a motion for unnecessary.
Yes, it's Andrew Haig, Birmingham, Michigan. Hopefully you can hear me okay.
Yes, go ahead.
It's semi-question on the motion itself. And when you were talking about the plots and using ground penetrating radar, it suddenly occurred to me to ask the question of, because I'm not familiar with Greenwood, it made me think of where my father is buried. we actually have different plot sizes for people that designate they wish to be cremated. And I don't know if Greenwood's set up the same way, so that if someone says they wish to be cremated, there's a much smaller plot available for the family to be able to put plaques, but it gives a better density in a given area to allow more families to have that opportunity to inter their loved ones. I don't know if that's an option to think about within the plot size or if it's already there, because I'm not familiar. It's just a thought for how it's structured where my father is. Thank
Yeah,
you.
Mr. Hake, we have, and I'll have Alex elaborate on this a little bit too.
So with those plots, depending on the combination of what goes in them, they could have up to 3 sets of cremains in them. And there are some other plots that are a little bit smaller or not a standard size that would fit a full casket. So we would designate those for just cremains.
Thank you, Alex, for the clarification and answering that. With that, any other public comment on the motion itself? I see none. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Host,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Long,
Yes.
Commissioner Hoff,
Yes.
Commissioner Nikita,
Yes.
Commissioner Sherman,
Yes.
Commissioner Valor,
Yes.
Mayor Boutros.
Yes. Thank you, Alex. We're still under unfinished business. Item B, we have in front of us a resolution to approve the use of 5 parking spaces in the right-of-way adjacent to the property located at 856 North Old Woodward to fulfill the parking requirements per Article 4, Section 4.43G of the zoning ordinance. With that, I'll pass it on to our city planner, Mr. Brooks Cohen. Go ahead, please, with some review on that, please.
Good evening, everyone. Is my audio working?
Yes.
Perfect. As you may recall, the applicant came before the City Commission in November to request 6 on-street spaces. They were encouraged to pursue a parking assessment district to become a member of that. But during that hearing, there was some discussion, and city manager brought up that it may be fair to bring back the on-street spaces. It was brought to the city's attention that there were 5 spaces in front, not 6. If I can do a share screen, one of the spaces was converted to a handicap loading zone to make it ADA compliant. So there are now 5 spaces in front of 856 North Old Woodward. The subject site has 65 parking spaces total. 42 of those are for the residential units, and currently 23 are dedicated for the commercial spaces. There are 3 commercial spaces, and they total around 4,200 square feet. We have some interested applicants, and the building owner has indicated a desire to obtain a few more parking spots to accommodate them. So with that, do you guys have any questions?
Brooks, are you sharing any screen with us or no?
Oh, I haven't had that.
You don't have to.
yet.
I thought you said you were going, but it's fine. Commissioner, at the meantime, do we have any questions for Mr. Cohen on that? It's been in front of us, Brooks. So unless other commissioner prefer to see the plan in front of them,
Here we
but
go. I can pull it up if you need to.
Commissioner Host, go ahead with your comment, please.
I'm not sure Brooks wants to answer this or Tom. You know, in keeping with trying to play baseball, so to speak, with the Pearl, what's the chance of doing a SLUP that allows them to use these spaces as long as these are the tenants that we hit, you know, that the Pearl has? And if the tenants change, then the hope would be that we could reverse the SLUP, or in a sense, is it possible to do a temporary thing to try to help out these businesses, or is it carte blanche forever?
I've never run into a case where the city has done that as a part of a special land use permit. It's a condition in the zoning ordinance number 4.45 as methods of providing parking facilities. However, those have historically stuck with the building forever. And so I guess you're right to assume it'd be up to Tom and Jana if they wanted to try to work something out like this. But historically, as City Commission has approved on-street spaces, those spaces have stuck with the building forever onwards.
Well,
You may continue. Go ahead, Commissioner Ross.
yeah, would it be possible to make a SLUP contingent on the actual tenants versus the property?
Well, Jana, why don't you comment?
Okay, well, it's a little bit of a question worded a little difficult. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Okay, yes, you can add a condition to a SLUP, right? You can have a special land use permit, you can attach a condition to it. But the entire building is not a special land use. So you can't create a special land use just because you want to attach the parking conditionally, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So there is a special land use permit that's up for that building, and that's for Fruition, which is a carryout restaurant or carryout food business right now that wants to go to a restaurant. So you could consider as a condition of that SLUP stating that they are entitled to use those 5 public spaces in the right of way to count towards their requirements, but that would not allow then the other tenants to use those spaces.
So in a summary, Commissioner Host, and help me understand, Mr. Acker, this might complicate the situation. Then we're trying to help the situation.
It would definitely complicate it, yes.
Okay.
And it would be hard to determine who's actually using the spaces. You know, if you were to attach that condition to the Fruition SLUP, you know, it's going to be hard to know who's parking there and what business they're going to.
Okay.
And let me just add that if you went that direction, as Jana is suggesting, the 5 spaces would be limited to that particular use. And so the computation for parking spaces on all the other uses would then be impacted by the deficit created by giving them to that restaurant through that special use. So the special use I think the special use would limit you just to that restaurant.
Correct.
Commissioner Ballard, go ahead.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, but the use of the 5 places to fulfill the requirement is not a SLUP. Is that correct?
That's
What I
correct.
thought- Okay, so I think that Commissioner Host may be using terminology that's not appropriate here. I think the question is, can we make this approval of these 5 right-of-way parking spaces to satisfy the parking requirement in some way temporary or contingent on the leases that he is saying he has now? And that if those people move out, then we no longer provide some or all of these spaces. So maybe assign 2 of them to one of the businesses, 3 to the other, and say, okay, if that salon goes out of business and 3 of those were, you can't go get another salon. You got to get somebody else. Or if you want another salon, you got to come back to us and ask for those 3 parking places again. I think that's the point of what he's saying. I don't think SLUPs are what we're talking about here. Just
Yeah, I think that potentially you could contractually do that if you had, the owner of those spaces willing to enter into an agreement of that sort, but it's not something that our land use is currently set up to handle. And it certainly wouldn't apply to the SLUP. That SLUP, as Jana indicated, is only related to that restaurant. I'm not suggesting that you would do that. I don't think you necessarily want to micromanage those 5 spaces as to particular uses.
Well, to be clear, I'm sorry, may I, Mayor?
Yeah, yes, Commissioner Ballard, let me give the floor to Commissioner Hoff and I'll come back to you. You want to finish your point? Go ahead, Commissioner Ballard.
Point is, I think for anybody in the public who's watching, This isn't about those specific 5 spaces. It's not like we're giving these spaces to the business. We're just saying 5 spaces anywhere, really, downtown, are satisfying their requirement. They're letting them, we're letting them slide by 5 spaces, saying that those cars can be parked elsewhere in the downtown. Correct, Deanna?
Yes, that's correct. It allows them to credit those 5 that happen to be right there and are likely to be used by businesses in that building anyway towards their parking requirement. But it doesn't mean they have to park only there. You're right. They could go down the street.
Which historically is not an unusual way to handle that situation.
Correct.
Commissioner Hoff, go ahead with your comment, please.
My question is, it was very tight. It was exact, the number of spaces they needed, and we were talking about 6. So I want to ask, will 5 fulfill the requirement? Is that enough? They needed so many for, is it fruition or fruition? How they pronounce it?
Fruition.
Fruition? I'm not sure how to
Fruition,
pronounce it. If it's fruition or fruition. But anyway, they needed a certain number for that business. And then the Lash Bar, I think next door, they needed a certain number. And then the last one was a med spa, if I remember correctly. They needed a certain number. Does 5 additional spaces meet that requirement?
So I can handle this one. Given the 3 applicants with Lash Lounge, and then given Fruition as a specialty foods carryout only, and then the floor plans submitted by Aurora Metaspa, the additional 5 would help those 3 meet their requirements. They would need 28, and they would have 28 given the site plan plus the 5. However, Fruition begins their SLUP review with the planning board on Wednesday and will come to City Commission. Converting from a specialty food store to a food and beverage restaurant, their parking requirement will go up to 16. So if the 5 spaces are not approved, Fruition will need a variance of 17 spaces. If they are approved, Fruition will need a variance of 12. However, that's based upon the current floor plans submitted for the 2 spas. From the planning division's point, the applicant can still work with the 3 commercial tenants and submit floor plans to reduce their parking requirements. And so there are a number of variables moving around, but hypothetically, if these 5 spaces were approved, the 2 spas left, and then 2 retail stores moved in, say t-shirt stores, then the place would have 28 spaces, including the 5 on the street, and Fruition would meet the parking requirement and wouldn't need a variance. So Fruition right now is subject to the other 2 floor plans, and how the 3 commercial tenant uses have been brought to the city. And so, easy answer and hard answer. There's a number of variables up, but Aurora Metaspa could get in with the 5. Yes.
Go ahead, Commissioner Hoff, continue.
Yes, I have a very specific question in terms of numbers. How many residential units are there in the building? They're required to provide 42 spaces. They have 65 spaces. How did that 42 come about? How many units do they have for residential? 20 some?
Off the top of my head, I'm not sure. It's in the planning packet I can pull up. I believe it's 20 to 22. However, the applicant can chime in here. I believe it's around 20.
Are they required to provide 2 parking spaces for each residential unit?
They spread it out between 2-bedroom units and 3-bedroom units. So the exact ratio of requirements off the top of my head, I'm not aware of, but I do know that it was 42 total, considering the multiple bedroom uses.
Well, maybe when the applicant comes online, they can explain, because if there's any opportunity to get extra spaces there, that's a possibility.
It is possible to pursue a shared parking agreement They would have to conduct parking studies based on the uses. They would have to go to the planning board for that and have the planning board approve the shared parking agreement, which demonstrates a reduction of parking.
I want to add something, since we're just a review of what happened in our last meeting, as why we're here and why we have this resolution in front of us. My recollection and my own comment myself was, it was very unclear for us that the applicant wanted to join the parking assessment, and it was unfair for us to say yes or no, because the history of 30 years ago, when this ordinance came about and the borders where it stops, and really that building was empty. It was a hole. It was nothing there but a very ugly situation that the city's been facing for a long time. And I'm not going to go on a story here. I'm going to go on factual things. If there was a building existing in that hole when the parking assessment district was evaluated, and I would assume, just the common sense, that they would not stop before that building. That would have been accounted to the parking assessment. And I believe the hardship here, and it's not like it's a self-created hardship. I really don't believe so. I believe it is just fair, and per our recommendation, we heard from their attorney. I just don't want to go back to the same conversation and spend another 1 hour listening to the same conversation we listened to in the last meeting. I believe tonight we have almost given the direction and the recommendation, and it was given by our city manager, as I recall, to do this as a really meet halfway, and to be win-win, and to be fair to the applicant, and also fair to the adjacent business owners. I do want to convey a message. We're not here to favor a business. We're not here to favor a development. We're here to favor a community. And I think as a community and as leaders, we have to look at also the circumstances we're facing. People are really closing their business doors today. And we ought to think more, and we're still negotiating whether it's a 5 or 6. I really do believe personally, and sorry to interrupt the commissions from their comment, I want you to think seriously about this, and let's put this behind us, and we really need to move forward with the decision. And I don't want to hear again, personally, I'm not interested in hearing the whole conversation again and the attorney telling us why they need this, because we already know. We came here, either we approve this resolution, or we have to have a really legit reason why are we not approving this resolution. I want to hear from the commission, why shouldn't we tonight approve this resolution? That's literally what we need to focus on, and we need to move on with this. Unless other commissioners believe differently, please, I'd like to hear from you. Commissioner Host, go ahead.
I do agree with you, Mr. Mayor, on the intent, and I like to think all of us want to help the retail people. But I'm just wondering if under any circumstance, we can take what is here given to us by the Pearl and somehow make it temporary or contingent on these particular, commercial renters. That's the only thing. I think you're right that we need to move ahead on it and be supportive, but I'm just wondering if it can be contingent on, the salon and et cetera.
I believe it was answered, Commissioner Host, that by our city manager. Historically, we have not done this. But again, you have to be comfortable with your decision tonight. And the applicant is not ready to come with an agreement. That was not the resolution that we have on us. It's completely not what we have in front of us. Commissioner Sherman, would you like to comment?
I would. The resolution that's in front of us is in our discretion. It is not something where we have to say why we shouldn't do it, but it's something that has to be why we should do it. And I would respectfully disagree that this is not a self-created situation, as the original proposal that was in front of us for this building indicated a certain level of parking. However, we're not going to debate either of those 2 points here tonight because they're really not relevant. One of the things that came out of the discussion when this originally came before us was, and I believe Mayor Pro Tem Long raised this, it's the manner in which parking is counted when you have certain areas which are restricted from the whole building. And I think that from a policy standpoint, that's something else we need to look at as part of our parking discussion. In this case, as I recall, a number of the spots that are allocated to their total allowed spaces are behind a gate, and the commercial tenants can't access them. Yet we're allowing them to have credit for those spots. Am I recalling that conversation correctly, Mayor Pro Tem?
Go ahead, Mayor.
Yes, I did raise that question. At our last hearing with them, they indicated that the managers of each of the 3 retail spaces would be regularly using that spots to try to address that concern.
Okay, very good. So, but it's something that I think that we need to look at in the future when we're dealing with how we count parking spots. If they're not accessible, they shouldn't be counted as available spots. We're talking about 5 spots here. Personally, I'm not in favor of doing this. However, I also understand that under the current circumstances, this landlord is going to have a very difficult time filling this space. Is that our issue? No, it's really not. But I do think that whether we allow the allocation of the spots or not, customers of those facilities are going to be using those spots. So I think this falls under that category of no harm, no foul, count it and move forward. And we'll look at how we're doing this in the future to try to prevent this type of situation from occurring. So I would move the suggested resolution accordingly.
Thank you. Are you second that?
No, I would like to comment.
Okay, any second on the motion?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Commissioner Hoff. I hear an echo in my voice. You can comment, Commissioner Baller.
Practically speaking, very few of these rental units have been rented. And there's an enormous amount of parking in this project right now. And I would guess for the foreseeable future. I would like to see a condition inserted where the property owner has to post a sign that gets people to park inside his project, because customers of his tenants should first park inside his building. They should go through that garage door and park inside, even if it means parking downstairs beyond the gate. They have to open the gate until there are enough tenants in that building forcing cars out onto the street. Because what I see is a situation, again, practically speaking, where customers of those businesses park in the spaces along the street, and then other businesses don't have the benefit of that. And their customers are not going to go into the that building to park unless they welcome, let's call them foreigners, to come in. And I don't think they're going to do that. So am I making myself clear that they should be required to use their parking places first and get their customers in there? If that's by posting a sign or something else, I think that should be a condition. I'd be interested in knowing if anyone agrees with that.
I think that's an excellent suggestion. It's just a sign.
Commissioner Hop?
I also agree. I think it's a good idea. While those units are not occupied, the ones that are required for residential, certainly the customers of the three businesses should be able to park there. And they wouldn't know about it unless there is a sign or some indication that parking is available in the rear.
Mayor Pro Tem Long?
I think Commissioner Baller is not referring to a shared parking agreement with the residential spaces beyond the gate. He's proposing that there should be some mechanism by which those 18, I believe it is, interior spaces that are available for the commercial spaces actually get utilized by the commercial space tenants, that the spa, the restaurant, whatever, when people make appointments, tell them you need to park inside the building so that they don't take all the frontage and all the street spaces and not use any of the 18 interior spaces, which could quite easily get filled up with delivery trucks and renovators and other things if the landlord doesn't manage those spots appropriately.
Commissioner Baller, 1 minute, please. My understanding from your suggestion is as simple as putting a sign, additional parking is available in the rear of the building or whatever it is. That's pretty much it. I am not sure though, how could this be accomplished with the resolution we have in front of us? And also if there is a room for a sign there. I don't know exactly how and where, but that's not, but I'd like to hear from Jenna if there is, or.
Well, I think you could attach a condition like that, requesting them to put up or requiring them to put up signage. And if you want, we can administratively approve it moving forward. I don't know if you really want it on a signpost out in the right of way, or if you want it on the garage door or something. If you have any particular suggestions, let us know. Otherwise, we can administratively approve it.
Commissioner Baller, go ahead.
Yeah, my suggestion was twofold, and it didn't involve shared parking. It was to post a sign and also leave the door to the basement parking open for use until such time that there are enough tenants in there that it makes sense to restrict access. So that would provide significantly more than the 19 spaces.
I can't speak for the applicant myself, and if they have a certain concern for safety also for the residents in the building, that's not my place to do so, but would also raise that concern. If there's the applicant is here, want to comment? Mr. Ratner, go ahead. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I can't see you, but I can hear you. We're good. Go ahead.
It's probably better. Anyway, I want to back up for just a moment. This is a matter of zoning. In Birmingham, there is an ordinance that allows parking to be fulfilled off-site within a certain distance from a property. Jana, I'm not sure. It's within 300 feet of the property?
Where they could get a credit for parking
Yes.
within 300 feet? Yes, if they leased parking from adjacent property owners.
Right.
But I don't know that there's any available to do that with in this.
I don't think there is here, but my point is that this is for a parking count. We're not taking spaces away from the public. If somebody in the public comes and uses a space, they're going to use one. I mean, we haven't cordoned it off. But for our purposes of parking count, we can count those 5 spaces. That's what we're up here for. And by the way, I want to thank the council for bringing this in front of you again, so that we have a chance to count 5 more spaces in the right of way. As far as the use until it's filled, I was told by the owner of the property just now that they're filling up weekly and will be filled fairly quickly. But you're asking for, I think, a problem in enforcement. Those spaces will be in front of our building, and they will be regular spaces that have only been counted for our building because of this resolution. So we're not talking about taking spaces away from anybody. And I think you'll find that it is very common along the Woodward corridor and South Woodward corridor to allow spaces to be used just for parking count in zoning. And that's all we're doing here. So we're not restricting zoning from anybody else, but we are allowing this count of our building to include those 5 spaces. There's another thing you should know. That was originally 6 spaces. And the police department evidently wanted 1 space to be handicapped. What they might not have known is inside the underneath the building, there are 2 spaces that are handicapped right at the entrance. And although I couldn't get a conversation with Commander Gruey, I would like to see that space outside converted to a normal space, but that's not before you tonight. I'm just saying we are. The third thing is that we were going to look at, for a future talk, the history of that parking assessment district. We didn't do that. We're not doing it tonight. But all we're doing tonight is asking that 5 more spaces be allowed to be counted for the Pearl so that its current setup may be used. And you all hit the valid points. It's just that this is a simple matter of account for zoning purposes. Jana, I am correct, am I not, that other people use on-street parking as a count for their zoning purposes and parking?
Yes, there is a section in the zoning ordinance that allows people to apply to the city commission for to use these right-of-way parking spaces adjacent to their property towards their parking requirement. And we have many other businesses up and down Old Woodward that do that right now, and even Big Woodward as well.
So this is not an unusual request, and it's a very natural one, because the spaces are right in front of the places that they might want to go into, as it is up and down all North Old Woodward. And we're here for questions. But I thank the commission for having the courtesy to bring this up in this meeting. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dadner. Okay, with that, Commissioner, any further comment? Commissioner Baller, and your comments well taken. I think it's a good observation. I believe we need to simplify it versus really making it more difficult than it is. But go ahead with your comment.
Yeah, unless there's some mechanism here to assure or to encourage cars to go into the garage, and I don't think it's complicated to require a sign, I will not be in favor of this. But if that is part of it, then I will be in favor.
Okay.
May I ask a question?
Go ahead, Mr. Ratner.
Are you against an administrative approval of the sign?
No, that's fine. Janet can okay the sign. Good for me.
Well, we do have a motion and it's seconded. I do believe we have Commissioner Baller not supporting unless pretty much you agree to his request, but he is one body of the commissioner. That doesn't mean you have to, and I'm not telling you yes or no, but that's up to the applicant. And really, I'm going to leave it to the public for questions so we can take it to vote. I think we spend enough time on this, gentlemen and ladies. So any comment from the public on the motion? Mr. Bloom, go ahead with your comment on the motion, please, itself.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
helping out an investor in our community and a building owner and retailers during this particular time is a nice thing. It's a noble thing. It's the right thing to do. I don't think that there's any disagreement or much disagreement on the commission for doing that. The thing is, as far as I understand it, and maybe my understanding is incorrect, this builder, this building owner put up a building under certain parameters and usages. And the builder then, because he or she couldn't fill the building, leased without permission to tenants that ended up exceeding those parameters. And then the building owner, with his erudite attorney, is pleading to the commission for mercy and for help. Again, providing help, providing mercy, okay, let's do it. But doing something in perpetuity for a temporary situation is taking advantage of the generosity of this commission and of this city. And I think it's wrong. And I would like to see some limits put on it, either along what Commissioner Baller wanted, some time limits, something to protect the residents. And not only that, there are a bunch of other businesses that are down the street from them that are constrained by parking at times.
Thank you.
So all of those other businesses are going to could be affected as well by putting in these kind of usages.
Thank you, Mr. Bloom. Any other public comment on the motion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Host,
Yes.
Commissioner Hoff,
Yes.
Commissioner Nikita,
Yes.
Commissioner Sherman,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Long,
Yes.
Commissioner
You said-
Baylor,
No.
Mayor Boutros.
Yes. Thank you, Alex. With that, we go to our next item on the unfinished business, item C. We have a resolution to deny the proposed lot combination of 34-350 Woodward and 907-911 Hayes, parcel number and number. We don't have to read those for the public, as the resulting parcel would not be consistent with the requirements for the MU5 and the MU7 zones, nor consistent with the recommendation in the Triangle District Plan. Or we can postpone the proposed lot combination hearing and direct city staff and the city attorney to continue negotiation with the applicant based on the issues noted, and to return with detailed plans on any property to be conveyed, including details and estimated costs to remove or reroute any utilities, specific dimension of the parcel proposed as a result of the lot combination, and any other details needed to evaluate the terms and condition offered by the applicant, and or a resolution to postpone the proposed lot combination hearing and direct the applicant to first go through the site plan and special land use permit amendment process at the planning board to obtain a recommendation from the board on expanding surface parking and the use of an auto sales agency within the MU7, MU5 zones, and finding as to whether the requirements of the zoning ordinance and the Triangle District Plan have been met. With that, I do believe we have also our city planner, Brooks Cohen, with us, and Jenna's still with us. So the floor is yours. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Can everyone see my screen share? Put up?
Yes.
Okay. The owner of 34-350 Woodward Avenue and 907-911 Haynes is seeking approval for a lot combination of two parcels into one in order to accommodate additional surface parking for the Fred Lavery Porsche dealership. Auto sales agencies within the MU7 and MU5 zones require a special land use permit, which the applicant obtained November 8th, 2010 for the 34-350 Woodward parcel only, although the applicant has yet to obtain SLUP approval for the expansion onto 907 Haynes and would like to go for a lot combination approval first. As you may recall, on December 21st, 2020, the applicant requested that the item be postponed for City Commission to review more information submitted by the applicant, and also wanted to meet with City Manager and City staff to discuss reaching an agreement. Since that time, the applicant has submitted a proposed agreement with the city, and it involves a number of conditions, the most relevant being that the applicant has proposed to convey the 60 feet to the eastern side of the 907 to 911 Haynes property in exchange for lot combination approval, and that the city convey this portion of South Elm Street to the applicant and pay for removal of utilities and infrastructure. So city staff has reviewed the proposal agreement and has identified a number of issues that require further discussion and direction from City Commission. And a full report on these issues will follow the summary of the lot combination requirements. So before I go through the lot combination requirements, I wanted to go over a little bit of the background regarding this area. So in 2007, the city approved the Triangle District Plan, and it recommends the city kind of start getting rid of its surface parking lots, and it wants to recommend infill and development. And so the subject properties are highlighted here in blue, approximately where they locate on the plan. And key elements of the Triangle District Plan are that the city create this Worth Plaza here, that it recommends the city do a parking structure, and it also recommends a Worth Street extension to Bowers, connecting this plaza and parking street for increased north-south connectivity in the area. And a fourth key element is that it recommends additional heights, 7 stories around here, 5 stories, and then 3 stories closer to residential spaces. And so I want to bring up Walgreens. Here's Walgreens located on the plan, and here's a parcel map of the current area. So subject parcel, Porsche here, 971 Haynes here. And in 2012, Walgreens came for a special land use permit approval. They wanted to have a drive-through for their pharmacy, which is a major income source apparently. And a part of their SLUP approval was that they provide a portion of the property for the city to obtain goals for the Triangle District recommendations. So this portion of Walgreens was gifted to the city to help create Worth Plaza and also reroute Worth Street to the west and can go around that plaza. It's of note that the city did not give Walgreens any land back for that exchange. The exchange was you get the special land use permit. And so, but Walgreens went through the planning board and the Board of Zoning Appeals and was able to obtain variances for excess parking here and height requirements. And so, that's relevant because when Fred Lavery, the current applicant, came to the planning board in January of 2020, the summary and recommendation was that expanding the auto sales agency use into here and creating a larger parking lot does not meet the zoning ordinance and does not meet goals of the Triangle District Plan. However, another part of the Triangle District Plan recommends that the city coordinate with businesses along Haynes to help achieve the Worth Street realignment and extension. And so the planning board discussed this. They motioned to postpone to get more information on how to proceed with this process. However, the applicant withdrew their application from the planning board and hasn't gone through the special land use permit process yet. And so at this time, they've now submitted a lot combination application, and they've also provided an agreement or a proposed agreement with the city for proposed lot combination where they would be willing to convey this portion in blue to the city in return for gaining this property here with a number of other conditions that will be reviewed that staff has taken issue with after the lot combo requirement review. And so in regards to lot combination requirements, number one is that the combination will result in lots or parcels of land consistent with character of the area where the property is located, Chapter 126 of the Code for the Zone Districts of the Zoning Ordinance, and all applicable master land use plans. So considering the current character of the area, there's a lot of surface parking. So it could be said that creating more surface parking for Porsche, looks like the rest of the area. However, that's not the long-term goal of the city. And then in regards to meeting the zoning ordinance for this lot combination and expansion, the section of the triangle zoning ordinance says that any expansion to an existing use or building that requires site plan approval has to be brought into compliance with the Triangle District and the Triangle District zoning ordinance standards. And so there's no proposed changes to the Fred Lavery Porsche building. They'd like to remain here, knock this building down, and make it a lot. Let me flip to the site plan here. So they'd like to create this surface parking lot. However, there's a number of variances that they would have to require. I think I've counted about 5. The Triangle District requires buildings to be located within 5 feet of the front setback. So it would have to be 5 feet within this entire boundary. They would have to do that for 75% of the lot coverage. So from here all the way around to here, the building would have to be within 5 feet for 75% of it. The Triangle District also has a minimum height of 3 stories. So they would need a variance for that as well because it's a 1-story building to remain. Buildings are required to be located on the corner when they're on a corner lot. So they would need a variance for that. And you're not allowed to have more than 60 feet of parking frontage in the Triangle District. And so they would need a variance for that as well. So they do not appear to meet ordinance requirements. And then the last part of number 1 is, are they in line with the applicable master plans? And again, the Triangle District says, we don't want surface parking, we want infill. Another part is that it says we recommend the Worth Street extension. However, the terms and conditions of the proposed agreement don't seem to be favorable to the city. So with that, we do not find that the lot combination proposal meets requirements of number 1 for lot combos. Numbers 2 and 3 in lot combination requirements only apply to residential single family. So those aren't in play here. Requirement number 4, combination will result in building envelope on the combined parcels that will allow for the placement of buildings and structures in a manner consistent with the existing rhythm and pattern of development within 500 feet. Again, I think the current pattern of the Triangle District is has a whole variety of buildings. However, the goal is to have more infill and commercial use. Number 5, no outstanding taxes. I'm gonna grab a drink real quick. Lots to cover. So requirement number 6 is very relevant in regards to the proposal. There's 3 parts to it. So requirement 6 says the combination will not adversely affect the interests of the public or the abutting property owners. In making this determination, the city commissions shall consider but not be limited to the following. So for 6A, very relevant, commission may consider the location of proposed buildings or structures, the location and nature of vehicular ingress and egress, so that the use or appropriate development of adjacent land or buildings will not be hindered, nor the value of that impaired. And based on the initial lot combination, the proposed site plan does not appear to have a significant impact on vehicular ingress and egress. However, the proposed agreement has a significant impact on vehicular ingress and egress if approved. As, let me go back to this, it proposes that the city vacate this portion of Elm Street and give it to the applicant. And so that has a major impact on the properties to the north. The conveyance of this parcel to the city for Worth Street Extension also has a major impact on the buildings next to the road. And so given the beginning stages of the applicant's proposal and the adequate or the lack of adequate review from the SLUP by appropriate reviewing bodies, including the engineering department, the planning board, and the city commission, it's yet to be determined whether the proposed agreement satisfies this requirement. We think it needs more review before we can answer that question satisfactorily. For 6B, it's not within a floodplain, but then 6C is another one that is very relevant. It says the city commission may consider the location, size, density, and site layout of any proposed structures or buildings as they may impact adequate supply of light and air to adjacent properties, and consider the capacity of essential public facilities such as police and fire, drainage and structures, municipal sanitary sewer and water, and refuse disposal. So according to the engineering department, there are a number of utilities and sewer lines beneath this suggested parcel on Elm Street that would need further study. The engineering department indicated that the city would want to review this further before making any kind of determination. And that also, in terms of costs for utilities, that the current proposal recommends that the city pay for moving that. So we would want further studies. Therefore, proposed agreement does not appear to satisfy the requirements of number 6. So I guess to summarize, that proposed lot combination does not appear to satisfy the lot combination requirements, and nor does the proposed agreement. In terms of issues city staff has identified, those include, but are not limited to the following. The agreement proposes a lot combination before SLUP approval and obtaining necessary variances. City staff recommend that they go forward with those first in order to make sure that all parts of the ordinance are met and it's been vetted by proper boards. The agreement proposes that the applicant pursue SLUP approval and variances after the lot combination agreement, and would like to have that within 6 months. City staff does not think that, or is not sure it could all be accomplished within 6 months. Number 3, the city has yet to determine if the proposed conveyance of the easternmost 60 feet of 907 to 911 Haynes provides adequate width for a road extension. They would want proper vetting by engineering department and planning board to make sure that that was enough. They find that it's too early to tell if Worth Street could be routed that way. Number 4, the agreement proposes the described portion of South Elm Street is to be conveyed by the city to the applicants, with the city to cover all costs. Again, this would be very expensive for the city to move all of the pavement and utilities located beneath Elm Street. Says that any nonconformities created would be waived by city, and also that number 6, the applicant's proposing about 18 parking spaces over here, and a condition is that it says the city must accommodate the applicant for all parking lost, either in a parking structure or parking permits or otherwise. So for legal review, lot combination proposed does not appear to benefit the long-term goals of the city. The fiscal impact, moving roads around would be very costly. And so in summary, the planning division finds that the proposed lot combination for the purpose of demolishing a building to expand a surface parking area is not consistent with the zoning ordinance nor applicable master plan for the Triangle District. They proposed an agreement which attempts to satisfy the Worth Street extension recommendations, and city staff have raised a number of issues. Accordingly, direction from city commission is sought on each of the issues raised to continue the negotiation process. In addition, direction from city commission is sought on the order of proceedings, given the complicated nature of the site plan changes, the SLUP amendments, lot combination, and the variances required. Commission may wish to postpone the lot combination hearing until the applicant goes through SLUP amendments process with the planning board, BZA, and city commission, and allow all variances to be identified to permit more public input related to the site plan changes and the proposed exchange of property. And with that, I leave it to you guys. Thanks for bearing with me.
All right, Mr. Cohen, that was a lengthy, wonderful to the point though. It's a lot to hear and to, let's see what the commissioners here. Oh, Commissioner Nikita, go ahead, please.
Oh, boy, that's a mouthful there.
Yeah.
Thanks for the review. I'm perplexed by a whole series of things, but I do have a question about the proposal. What we have in the packet, there's no reference to this, at least I missed it unless it's in there, but the images that you have of this Elm Street triangle that's being considered, where we would pay, where the city would pay to take the infrastructure out of that. What exactly is the applicant interested in doing with that little triangle piece? There's no proposal that I've seen as to what would happen or what they would do. I'm just curious on what that triangle piece gives them and what would they propose to do with it?
They might have a more clear explanation, but what I didn't, this parcel is zoned MU7. And so in giving up MU5 space here, they're proposing to gain MU7 zone space. And it appears to have Elm Street vacated for additional development in the MU7 zone along Woodward. Appears to be my impression. However, they can provide more clarity on that aspect.
Okay, if I could.
You may continue. Yes, go ahead, Commissioner Nikita.
So knowing that intersection and quite well, and knowing the circumstance of navigating turning left and right and the way that Bowers intersection goes, was there any review on traffic pattern issues and effect on traffic pattern? I didn't hear you mention that. Maybe I missed it, but closing that would have a huge impact on the traffic considerations that we currently have there. And understandably, over time, that we may consider doing that differently, but I didn't hear any reference to that.
I believe it was alluded to a little bit within the part where we recommend that the applicant go through proper SLUP review process where traffic studies would be conducted. It was a lot to go over, so I apologize if I missed a part, but the planning division recommends that proper SLUP procedures be followed and allow time for the engineering department and the traffic study consultants to review and provide reports to the relevant boards involved.
Okay, last question, Mr. Mayor.
You go ahead, please.
Yeah, okay. Was there any reference in any of the discussion and dialogue as to how long there was an intention to use this surface parking lot expansion? Meaning, was there a time limit or a discussion about how long they would expect to use it as a surface parking lot and eventually have a plan for something of a higher and better use that would in some way correspond with our master plan and our intent for that area?
The applicant had indicated a bit of a timeline when they went to the planning board, but then withdrew their application. However, it was nothing in certain. It was them talking about goals for the Porsche dealership. However, that given that it's zone MU5, MU7 in the long run, that they think it would be better developed. But to answer your question, no timeline on development. They mentioned that it would be a stopgap use and to allow more development within the Triangle District to catch hold.
Thank
My
you.
impression.
Thank you.
Right. Any other questions by the commissioners to Mr. Cohen or to Jana? Mayor Pro Tem Long, go ahead.
Thank you. As is Commissioner Nikita, concerned about the use of the proposed parcel to be conveyed. And I question what would happen to the part of Elm north of that triangle and to those businesses that have frontage on that street, should we convey this property. I remain concerned about allowing a lot combination, which in essence makes permanent the accommodations that they want. And I remain concerned about the fact that we're being asked to address all these things before the planning board has completed a review. So
Okay.
is there any comment about what would happen to Elm Street beyond the conveyed property?
Brooks, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I think at the end of the report, that's why the planning division city staff were saying, does the city commission wish to have the city staff pursue more negotiations, or do we recommend that it go to the proper boards where that decision and determination on what happens to the rest of Elm is made by the relevant boards involved in that kind of decision. So right now, I can't say with any certainty what would happen.
Any other questions? Commissioner Sherman, go ahead, please.
Are we going to be hearing from the applicant?
Let's ask the question. Here we go. Yes,
Canvasser, I believe, is the representative.
Yep, here we go. Mr. Jason Canvasser, good evening. The floor is yours. Do you like to address anything?
Yeah, there's a lot there, and good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the commission. There's a whole lot there. I want to start by talking about the agreement because I think that's really the most important thing right now. And just as a reminder, when we were in front of the commission, I think it was December 25th, give or take, or maybe 22nd actually. The discussion was that we wanted to give the commission some additional information, but we also wanted time to meet with the city manager and go over things. And Mr. Valentine was very courteous and scheduled a quick meeting between myself, Mr. Lavery, he was present, Mr. Marcus was present, Ms. Ecker was present, the city attorney, Mr. Courier were present. We met at the property and we talked about different ideas in terms of what could happen there. And we talked specifically, among other things, about this land swap. And we left that meeting saying that this is an idea we should consider and try to advance. And so in order to do so, the decision was made that I would draft, or my office would draft, a proposed agreement. Our understanding when we left that meeting was that we would have conversations and that agreement would be a talking point, a starting point for negotiations. And so the agreement you have in your packet isn't a take it or leave it proposition. It is meant to be a point of discussion. And unfortunately, we ran out of time, and I know Mr. Marcus has a lot on his plate coming in 3 weeks into the new position. We haven't had a chance yet to discuss the ins and outs of the agreement. There is a lot of moving pieces in this area, and I think the city's consultant, Matt Lambert, probably put it best at the November 11th planning board study session. And I quote him, he says, the whole area is a mess. There's a lot going on here. There's the discussion regarding the Worth Street extension. There's the new master plan. There's the current master plan. There's things in both of those plans talking about moving properties onto Woodward. And so that's kind of the impetus behind all this stuff. So Commissioner Nikita asked about the intent for time use. This is a 10-year plan. Mr. Lavery, and he's on, I believe, the call today, and he can probably talk more about it, but the long-term plan is to redevelop both of these properties in conformity with the then existing plan. However, we got to look at the current state of the properties right now. We have Lavery Porsche, which has a franchise agreement with Porsche that has to be renewed every 10 years, and Mr. Lavery is in the process of doing that. Porsche has certain requirements that, depending on how things go here, may or may not allow that dealership to stay. There's the old Spa Marina building, the Barta building. It's that white old 2-story building, which is completely outdated. It's out of code compliance. As of 5 years ago, I think it required roughly $400,000 to $500,000 in upgrades. It doesn't have ADA compliant elevators. It doesn't have a whole lot of things. So if there's going to be an investment in that building, then that is going to take away a long-term plan of redeveloping both of these properties. If the building is torn down and there's no lot combination, then there's going to be a vacant property there, which I don't believe benefits anybody. And so there's a whole lot of moving pieces again. And so the lot combination doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be a perfect parking lot. We'd still have to go through the sub process, the planning department, the variances and whatever. But the lot combination benefits both parties no matter what happens long-term. Even if nothing changes tomorrow, the lot combination certainly helps everybody. In my December 17th letter, I've gone through this in a whole lot more detail. You know, as to that triangle piece specifically, the short-term plan is to do nothing. In fact, nothing would happen with that piece if the city chose not to vacate Elm. If the city decides not to vacate Elm, that property is going to be owned by Lavery, but nothing substantially is going to change. That is, I think, been decided, or at least during the planning board study sessions for the new master plan, there was numerous comments that that's probably the most dangerous, if not probably the most dangerous intersection in Birmingham. I think if you ask Mr. Lavery, there's an accident on average every 2 months at that intersection. A bus almost went through his showroom coming around that corner too quickly. So if the city were to eventually vacate that property, and at some point after this 10-year stopgap measure would pass, or maybe even sooner than that, the property could then meet with and conform with the plan and go all the way to Woodward. Otherwise, if he was to redevelop that property now and the city vacated Elm, you're going to have a property that doesn't come to Woodward, and you're going to have some dead space there. Also, if he redevelops that property or he puts money into the, call it the Barta building, that's going to severely impact, if not make it DOA, so to speak, the ability to extend Worth Street. Right now, if he demolishes that building, you've accomplished 2/3 of the way to get through the Worth Street, with the property to the north being the last piece. And so, I guess circling back, we took the exact same agreement that was in place with Walgreens. The parking spaces, the insurance, the reciprocal easements, all those concepts were in that previous approved agreement. Now, we had to add stuff because there's easements, there's other considerations that just don't apply to that Walgreens spot. But again, that's meant for talking points. So we want to continue that discussion, and we think the best thing to do would be to move this out. I propose maybe the first hearing in March, and let the city manager continue conversations along with the city attorney as we move towards some kind of amicable agreement. And really, again, the city is working on two issues that are long-term plans that have both been recommended: the Elm Street vacation and the Worth Street extension. So I'm happy to go into more detail or talk about anything or answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Canvasser. With that, commissioners, any questions for our applicant representative, Mr. Canvasser? Commissioner Baller, unmute yourself. I see you muted.
Mr. Canvasser, were you just suggesting that we just take no action on this right now?
I'm suggesting that the middle resolution be adopted, resolution to postpone the proposed lot combination hearing.
Yeah,
Go ahead. Go ahead. You may continue. Yes.
For either Ms. Ecker or Mr. Marcus, you provided several options. I'd be interested in knowing on what you favor.
Tom, do you want me to answer or would you like to?
I'm just taking my mute off. I'm not opposed to a legal counsel's suggestion for the middle resolution. I think he started by saying that this agreement was similar to the Walgreens agreement, and that he added, but there were some add-ons. And I think those add-ons caused me some concern, and that's why we brought it to the attention to the commission. Our hope was to get some direction from the commission, maybe suggesting that this agreement be quite a bit more similar to the Walgreens arrangement, which doesn't have a land swap and some other provisions.
Thank you, Mr. Marcus. Go ahead, Commissioner Baller.
Yeah, I'll just tell you what I think and then let you guys sort of. I think what I think conforms to what you're saying, and my thoughts are much higher level. That this district needs work. We're long overdue. The city hasn't really done its part, and property owners like Mr. Lavery are a little bit between a rock and a hard place. I like the idea of working together. It's like we're finally talking to property owners. We should be talking to more property owners. We should be talking to every property owner in that district and looking at this holistically so that we can get that district squared away in my lifetime. That said, I'm not real thrilled with the idea of vacating Elm Street. Not now, not anytime before there's a more comprehensive plan that includes that. But so I think we should keep talking.
Okay, other commissioners? Commissioner Sherman, go ahead.
I don't have any issue with continuing a conversation. However, I would note two things. First, there is a charter prohibition against the city selling land without a vote if it's valued over a certain dollar amount. Whether that land swap would qualify under that is something I don't know. I could see it being that it's an exchange of property for value, which could be termed a sale. Second, I'm trying to get my arms around the idea that somehow a surface parking lot being built there complies with the intent of the Triangle District, and I can't see it. So if you can get over those couple hurdles, then that'd be great. But continuing conversation is probably the only way to move forward. It's either that or be done with it.
Thanks for your comment, Commissioner Sherman. Commissioner Hoff.
My concern is that as I look at this and I see the requirements for lot combinations, this proposal is not in compliance with so many of them. So I would ask Tom and Jana, I don't object to continuing the negotiations, but do you see that there's any foreseeable possibility of coming to some agreement here when there are so many standards that are not being met by what is being proposed? And that's a question to Jana or Tom. Is it a possibility?
Jana, why don't you go first and then I'll add on.
Okay,
Well, one of the basic requirements is that if the lots are combined, that the developments on and the property will be compliant with the zoning ordinance. And of course, as Brooks enumerated, there are several issues, many of them, that it does not comply with if the lot combination were to go through. So they would not only have to become compliant, which would involve moving the building and completely redeveloping the property, or they would have to go presumably to the Board of Zoning Appeals to get variances. I think it would be very difficult to get around that, but I mean, could it be done? I guess it could, yes.
So what I would add to that comment is, I think the understanding that I had going into the discussion or the negotiation was that maybe there's a quid pro quo in terms of the allowance to secure that property for the extension of the roadway, which moves towards a part of the compliance with the plan and would then going through the SLUP process, start to inform that conversation as well. But whether it's through variance or some other means, there would have to be those accommodations. But I think what I heard from the commission when they suggested that we go down this path is that there would probably have to be those types of quid pro quo to make this work. There'd have to be an understanding that some of these interim uses would have to be allowed under the plan, which are not consistent with the plan, knowing that the long-term objective of the Worth Street extension was being met, and that that's a significant feature of the plan as well. I have problems with a quid pro quo on the land swap and the added requirements of relocation of utilities, which we haven't studied at all at this point. So if that remains on the table, the land swap proposal, I think it's going to be very difficult to reach agreement on this. I think the agreement has to more replicate the arrangements that we had with Walgreens, and maybe there's some language that talks about future triangle roadway, the extension or the vacation of Elm, but that it's more, I don't want to say aspirational, but it's more in a long range kind of planning approach that it gets dealt with it at that point in time. If it's right of way, I would say that to Commissioner Sherman's point, it's not necessarily the sale of land, the vacation of right of way. I think this is something legal might have to add on to. Typically, those properties can be vacated and the land then would be attached to the adjoining properties. So I don't know if that's still the statute here or the provisions in the law here that maybe necessarily this wouldn't actually be a sale or a transfer relationship, which I struggle with to begin with. Ultimately, I think this thing has to be closer to the arrangement we had with Walgreens, and that didn't include this discussion of a land swap. I understand why they asked for it, but I have trouble getting there.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was muted by Eric, I guess. Commissioner Nikita, go ahead. Commissioner Ball, I'll come back to you.
Yeah, when I was on the planning board, I worked on this. I was the liaison for the planning board on this planning team. So I worked on the charrette, I worked on the workshops, I actually worked on the drawings. I worked on this triangle district plan intimately, and I know the ins and outs of it, and I know the goals, and I know the intentions very, very well, because I helped to create them. And I have to say that this proposal is actually incredibly far from our intent. I mean, it really almost couldn't be farther from the intent of the Triangle District redevelopment plan. It's significantly, it goes against a whole series of issues that we put forth that we wanted to see. And Brooks did a great job of breaking those down and presenting those. I don't have to go through them. I'm listing them on my paper here, and I can see a dozen that I just listed that were part of what Brooks's presentation was. I don't see that the proposal or the short-term or long-term actually comes close to the intent of that master plan and the general intent of really any part of the city. It's not even the Triangle District. We don't advocate for tearing down buildings and building surface parking lots. We don't advocate for a whole series of the things here. We purposefully added density into these sites so that we could have the kind of development that would be congruent with our goals in these districts that are higher density, mixed use, pedestrian oriented districts. You know, we have a mandatory 3-story development. They're proposing tearing down a 2-story building and building a surface parking lot. This land swap is nowhere near, in my mind, what we're seeing at the Walgreens proposal, which wasn't tearing down a building, was giving a parcel of land to the city and was asking for nothing in return. They're asking for property in return and for us to pay for the utility changes that are needed. I mean, that would cost the city in addition to losing land. And I don't even know if legally we could do that, given the fact that we have the charter issue of land. So on a whole series of points, and we know what they are, we've heard them all now. And this has been in front of us multiple times. It's been, what is this, the third, maybe even the fourth time that it's been on our agenda that's been pulled and pulled and pulled and pulled with an intention to come back with a better plan. And I kept expecting a better plan that would be more in line with something we could consider. I don't see this being much different than any of the earlier plans. And frankly, we're significantly far from in my opinion, from where it needs to be. So I guess, should we continue the dialogue? I think to the manager's point, I'm always open for a Hail Mary. I mean, if we want to throw the ball, and hope for the best, if the manager feels like that's possible, but I think we're so far from the goals of the plan, the goals of the city, the goals of any development in the city, that they would have to come a long way to come back and I think get approval in my mind. So, I don't know. I think we're a long, long way off, frankly, and I'm not sure where to go, but I'm open for the manager to take another stab, but I'd say that there's a whole lot of work that needs to be done and a lot of interest in rethinking what has been proposed so far. That's my mind.
Mr. Mayor, may I address something real quick?
You may, Mr. Canvasser, go ahead.
I just want to make sure that one of my points is clear. The long-term plan with these properties, with both of these properties, is to redevelop both of them in harmony and congruence with the master plan. That means multi-story mixed-use properties. The reason that can't occur today is twofold. If that occurred today, there wouldn't be a Worth Street extension, which is in the master plan. There also wouldn't be properties that abutted Woodward, which is also in the master plan. And so while the stopgap proposal may not meet the intent of the district, Triangle District plan is to the letter, it achieves that long-term plan by not rushing to do a redevelopment and doing it at the sake of speed without fully being able to hit all these parts, the Worth Street, Woodward, and all the other parts that are being discussed right now during the study sessions of the new master plan.
All right, thank you, Mr. Canvasser. Go ahead, Commissioner Butler.
Yeah, I too participated in this plan and I'm like to think I'm pretty familiar with it. And a part of it called for the city to build some parking there, and it's been 15 years and we haven't held up our end of that. So it's hard for me to sit here and say that this property owner ought to develop according to the plan when the city hasn't done what it's supposed to do. And it's been before us so many times because I don't think the previous administration ever sat down with these guys and tried to work something out. I think that the central issue here is the Porsche dealership, and that you know, they need this in order to keep the dealership, and if we don't give it to them, they could lose the dealership. They said that twice to us now, and if we want that dealership to be vacated, I don't know. Maybe that's maybe I don't know what would happen, but I think we need to think ahead here. And there may be, you know, this is food for thought for the city manager when he sits down and talks to them again. I mean, there's a lot of stuff at play here. Maybe the city ought to, you know, I don't know. If we want to help the Porsche dealer, then we ought to be focusing on ways we can help the Porsche dealer stay. If we don't care about the Porsche dealer, then let's walk away from them and let them, you know, and let Porsche yank the franchise, and we can take our chances there. And the city may have some leverage in this because of that situation. We ought to take advantage of it if we can.
Thank you, Commissioner Butler. Do I see any other commissioner want to say anything? I believe I see almost, don't want to speak for everyone, like a consensus to continue a dialogue. And I believe just to take on tonight from hearing the applicant, attorney, and our staff, and the wonderful comments that brought up by your commissioners, and our city manager, I believe there is room, maybe, I hope, for further a discussion, negotiation to come to a solution. Mr. Canvasser had mentioned, you comforted me. I wasn't comfortable at all in the beginning. That the intent, as we spoke of, as also Commissioner Ballard stated, we don't have the master plan. Had we had it, we will have a different discussion. And you're in the midst of it right now. And the literally, like you mentioned, a lot of moving pieces that we're dealing with. But you comforted me personally when you said the intent is to a future development. And that's the intent of the long-term care for the city, and a long-term goal, I apologize, for the city. I hope to see something coming back personally. Those add-ons that the city manager had mentioned, that maybe you have to think about them seriously, and how to work with our planning department, our city staff and city attorney, and our city manager to see how you can come up with a solution and a resolution to comfort us for and meet us, and also understand that we really had put a lot of time and effort to create a master plan in that district itself. That triangle is really, really of an essence of importance to develop that area, from a parking structure to more buildings. And yes, we don't prefer a surface parking lot. And I hope this is a temporary fix for the business to continue, as we want to see the Porsche dealership stay in our town. But again, I see more consensus from the commission that to continue the negotiation. With that, Commissioner, unless you see or something different, I'll entertain a motion, I hope, or unless there's some clarification or questions. Commissioners?
Could I speak?
Oh, Mr. Lavery, sure. The applicant. Go ahead, the owner. Mr. Lavery, is that you?
It is.
Go ahead with your comment, please.
Well, first, the reference to the agreement. We left the meeting with, all the parties that were represented at that meeting with the idea that somebody had to put something on paper so that we could further negotiation. And what I tried to do with that agreement is to put all the relevant issues on the piece of paper so we could have an informed negotiation. It wasn't an offer. It was the way to get to where we could have an offer that had a chance of agreement by all parties. It wasn't my intent that it get debated tonight, but it did. I didn't know it was going to be debated, but it was. And the issue of who's going to pay for the relocation of the utilities and the tearing up of the street was in that agreement, so we would all focus on it. And everybody would understand it's going to have to be done and how it would be paid for. That was the whole purpose, not to make a proposal, but to make sure the issue was on the table. We have said in numerous times that this is an interim agreement. This is an interim use until the city can fulfill their responsibility under the Triangle District Plan and what is proposed for the Haynes Street Square neighborhood. It's exactly what that is. The reason that the vacation of Elm Street was in this plan was it's part of the new master plan proposal for the Haynes Street neighborhood. I didn't think about it. It was there. So I put it in the discussion document that has been called an agreement or an offer by us. It's a discussion document. The vacation of the extension of Worth Street is not my idea. It's in the Triangle District proposal. So we put it in the discussion document. And that's all this stuff is. It is not, I'm not trying to dictate what the city does. I'm trying to facilitate a discussion. And I don't think that really came across tonight. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Lavery. Okay, any other comment? Commissioners, questions to the applicant? Questions from the public to the applicant or to our staff?
Mr. Hague has got his hand up.
Go ahead, Mr. Hague. Go ahead with your comment, please, or question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You got.
I'd just like to say there are some excellent points brought up by Commissioners Sherman, Nikita, and Hoff in particular, and then to Commissioner Ballard's point about we haven't really followed the plan and making it worse before it gets better. We don't know that it'll get better after it gets worse. But if I look at the figure 3, Triangle District Urban Design Plan, I think that may be where there's some misleading going on. If Brooks would bring that back up so everybody looks at the same piece. If we look at the blue outline subject parcels, it actually shows what the future planned state would be, and it shows that the parcel itself actually extends into the area where Elm currently is, in effect, but it also shows a narrowing of Big Woodward. I think that's it, exactly there. If you would zoom in a little bit, just so that you can see that. I think that may be where it's actually very misleading as to what the future state is, because it actually already requires changes that will require Oakland County Commission to change Big Woodward to begin with. And none of that's on the table at all. Yeah, if you scroll down a little bit, please, Brooks. Oh yeah, exactly there. zoom in on that area in particular, because that's the thing that actually I find it shows that the building parcel extends actually outside the existing parcel today and extends into the current Elm Street area. That's not the situation today. That's not the situation that we can even approve going forward with, because if you look at the line of the trees running along Big Woodward, it shows a different road width compared to today. It already shows a narrowing, if I'm reading it correctly, because of the way everything is in relative position to itself. So I think this is actually potentially misleading Mr. Lavery and his proposal, because this is showing something that actually has factors outside of the city of Birmingham's control, which is modifications to Woodward. Maybe this is just how I read it, but I read it as though that's a leading document, and the leading document is incorrect. Does that make sense with what I'm seeing in this particular picture?
Mr. Cohen, would you like to address that?
I believe we would have to clarify things with Oakland County and also MDOT and who own Woodward, just to make sure if any kind of rerouting of any roads connecting with Woodward.
Not just Woodward, it's the width of Woodward. If you look at the parallel line of trees, exactly where your mouse is right now, that's currently a roadway. That's not a pathway and not a median. That's physical traffic lane.
Yeah, I appreciate your comment, Mr. Hague. I think well taken. We'll definitely take a look at that.
Yeah, so that was just my point about it. It may
Thank
be
you.
compounding the issue.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. With that, commissioners. Commissioner Sherman, go ahead, please.
I would just ask our city manager if he has some guidance as to which direction the commission would like to go on this.
And I just add to that, Mr. Marcus, if we choose to postpone it, and I do believe timing, we need to put a certain date. And if you can enlighten us to timing from your end, the staff, and how do we foresee this?
Well, from my perspective, I think there's a pretty serious negotiation that would have to take place for us as a staff to be able to recommend an action for the commission's approval based on the complications of the plan, the zoning ordinance, the lot combination requirements, the special land use permit, to inform those subsequent actions. And I'm still in favor of the middle resolution and moving forward to negotiate that.
And would March be fair timing? And I'm not suggesting or directing anything here or favoring, but I'm just asking the question, Mr. Marcus.
Well, we can target one of the March meetings. However, as long as we can postpone from the staff perspective, we'll try and target for March, but I think it could take longer than that.
Okay, Commissioner Sherman, go ahead.
Is this in fact a public hearing?
Yeah, well, it's postponed 3 times.
I understand, but is this in fact a public hearing?
Yes.
I would consider, yes, a continuation.
Okay, part of the reason I'm asking is because the resolutions don't indicate, and neither does the memo.
Jana, can you address that?
Yeah, I agree.
It is a public hearing. You did set the public hearing and it's been postponed several times. So if you do postpone, you can either set it to a date certain and no additional noticing will be required, or if you just postpone it indefinitely, it'll have to come back and be renoticed.
Okay, so 2 things. One, did we ever open the public hearing?
No, we have to reopen it.
Okay, so that's the first. And then the question is whether we just renotice it at this point, let the negotiations continue. And then if you end up having something, just renotice a special, public hearing and go forward. But either way, I think you do have to open up the public hearing.
Yeah, if we choose to go route 2, this is I would like to open the public hearing to continue the discussion of the lot combination hearing of 34350 Woodward and 907 911 Hayes. Yes, Commissioner Sherman. Sorry, Commissioner Hoff. I'll be back.
I was just going to say, I mean, I think all the conversation of the public hearing has happened, so you can close the public hearing and then we can put a motion on the table.
I will in a second. Yep. Commissioner Hoff, would you like to say something?
Well, I was going to say that if Mr. Marcus is agreeable to continue negotiations, then that's fine. But to me, this is more than negotiations. This plan, or what we have heard tonight, is so much, there are so many areas that are outside of what we are looking for, what the city is looking for, that it isn't a negotiation on this plan. It's almost a different approach. So I have no objection to continuing, but I don't see that this, the way that it is being proposed, is within our parameters.
Yes, Commissioner, as Mr. Lavery had stated, I hope, and I do believe that this is not a proposed final agreement from him. This is more of to start a negotiation. I'm personally comfortable, but I echo your words. So with that, I'd like to close the hearing. And now we'll bring it back to commission, entertain a motion. Commissioner Host.
I'd like to make a motion, and it's the middle resolution, to postpone the proposed lot combination hearing and direct city staff and the city attorney to continue negotiations with the applicant based on the issues noted, and to return with detailed plans on any property to be conveyed, including details and estimated costs to remove or reroute any utilities, specific dimensions of the parcel proposed as a result of the lot combination, and any other details needed to evaluate the terms and conditions offered by the applicant.
And would you like to add the date, please, Commissioners, as you have to? Would you, I suggest myself March 22nd, even though that might have to be postponed again for timing purposes.
Yes, we'll go with March 22nd, 2021.
Okay. We have a motion.
Second.
And seconded by Commissioner Nikita. Commissioner Nikita, comment on the motion?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify a couple things. I think this is fine. The manager suggests further discussion. I think most of us have said that that would be fine. I think the comment that this is just a discussion. I mean, in front of us, we have some pretty specific requests. So I think what the commission has been given is not just a discussion. It's pretty specific, and so I think we're reacting to a specific proposal with a series of detailed components reviewed by staff and presented by staff in specificity. So I think, to Mr. Lavery's point, and I appreciate his thought, and that's fine, but the reality is that I think what we have in front of us is something pretty specific. And so it really isn't just a dialogue. In my mind, it's a proposal, and it says to postpone the proposed lot combination, to propose, essentially what is being proposed. So I think we're reacting to that as if it's a proposal, not just a sort of a discussion. So I think that needs to be clear. The other thing is and again, with Commissioner Hoff's comment, where we are and where we're going. Just two other points that I think are important. One is this isn't just a let's work with someone and figure out how we can get there. We have a zoning ordinance, and it's a definitive zoning ordinance for how we address this particular area in terms of development. So when developments come to us in this area, in the Triangle District, as they do downtown and in the neighborhoods, wherever, we have a zoning ordinance that we have to adhere to. So it isn't suggestions and thoughts and ideas. It's a particular legal document that says we need to develop it in a certain way. And so I think it's pretty definitive. And that's why there's this list of all these things that it doesn't concur with. So this idea that, that the city had big ideas and, in a master plan, and we did or didn't do certain things. And so, the applicants can and can't do whatever they want. The reality is we have a zoning ordinance that requires certain things. So any proposal needs to adhere to that. And it's very specific. So this is just, we're going along the lines of the process and the way that we need to do that. And that's very important. So these are things that I think are important. And lastly, I would say, it's a great idea for the proposal to say that our intent is eventually to develop the site the way your master plan, recommends. But in the meantime, let us do something that is completely opposite of what the master plan suggests. And I think that, that's fine as if you want to say that, but the reality is we have no guarantee that a multi-story mixed use development would ever happen here. It could never happen here. And so I think that the idea that, that's our intent is a great thought, and I appreciate that, but I think we need to have more definitive answers than an intent for tearing down a building, expanding a surface parking lot for who knows how long. So those are my concerns, and I pass that along to staff and city manager to incorporate that into the dialogue, because I think we have a long way to go between where we're at and where I think we need to be if we want to see this move forward. That's my thought.
Thanks, Commissioner Nikita. Any other comment on the motion? By the commissioners, see none. By the public? Seeing none. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Host,
Yes.
Commissioner Nikita,
Yes.
Commissioner Sherman,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Long,
Yes.
Commissioner Baller,
Yes.
Commissioner Hoff.
Yes.
Commissioner Host, did I already call you?
Yes.
Yes.
Mayor Boutros.
Yes. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Mr. Canvasser, Mr. Lavery. Have a wonderful evening. See you later. With that, we go to new business. First item on the new business is a resolution to approve the settlement agreement of December 21st, 2020 between the City of Birmingham and the Birmingham Firefighters Association Local 911 for a renewal of the collective bargaining agreement for a term of July 1st, 2020, June 30, 2023. And with that, we have
Mr. Jim Hawk.
our interim HR manager, Mr. Jim Hawk. Good evening, Mr. Hawk.
Good evening. Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank the city manager for the opportunity to come to work with him and for the city of Birmingham, and thank the mayor and the commissioners the opportunity to try and advance some ideas and move Birmingham forward. This evening, we have a couple of your settlement agreements for labor agreements for your consideration. The first one is the local 911. Gee, how did they get that number? For the Birmingham firefighters. I don't know who they bribed, but anyways. Looking at the key issues, the negotiations started back in November 3rd, went through December 20th. After several sessions, the union has ratified the agreement that was attached as part of your backup. The key issues for the city has been to increase the healthcare copay while giving moderate wage increases to the various bargaining units. This is a 3-year agreement retroactive to July 1st of 2020, and it provides a wage increase of 1.5% in each of the years, plus a 2% on each step to the captain's position, which will in the future be known as a battalion chief position. There is also a $750, in essence, signing bonus for the firefighters. It is not rolled into the base wage, and it's not included for the captain position. The annual compensation amounts that are individual increases are recognitions for specific certifications such as advanced life support and so on. Again, we did increase the cost sharing for the healthcare, and there were some minor economic provisions. On Friday, I sent you an email outlining what I wanted to make sure that everybody understands is that in a 3-year agreement, you have the year 1 cost, and then in year 2, you have year 1 plus year 2, and then in year 3, it's year 1 plus 2 plus 3. So when we're talking about how much more will be spent, we're looking at adding all of those 3 years together for a total contract cost. So I provided that for you, both with the AFSCME and the Firefighters Association proposed settlement agreement. Are there any questions for me? And if you have any specific questions, Chief Wells is also on the meeting as well.
Yep, thank you. Well recognized. Go ahead, Commissioner Hoff, with your question, please.
I have 2 questions. First of all, how do these increases compare with past settlements regarding wage increases?
Well, there have been some 2% increases, I believe, in 2020. So we're actually setting a pattern for future agreements. These 2 agreements will be the last 2, except Teamsters is coming up next July. And then it'll be a couple, 3 years before any further negotiations.
Okay, and my second question is, the next agreement that we're going to look at is the municipal employees agreement. I like the way that was done with the changes in red. So it's very easy to know what the changes are. In this agreement, there is no indication.
I can share with you that they are virtually identical in terms of the cost sharing provisions in the healthcare. You can see that on page 2 of the backup for the fire department, you can see that there are deductibles that are being increased under item 5 under healthcare, and those are identical to what is being accepted by AFSCME.
Okay, well, I just might suggest that the one with the red changes is very clear and very easy both to understand and to compare. And I would request that in the future they be done like that.
Very good. That's easy to do.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Hawk or our chief? From the public, any questions? Being none, Mr. Sherman.
I don't have a question. I am going to move the suggested resolution, and then I do have a comment.
Awesome. We have a motion, seconded by Commissioner Host. Unmute yourself, please.
Yeah, I know. Yes, second.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Sherman, go ahead with your comment.
So my comment is, having seen a number of these over the years, it seems like usually we have gone to arbitration a number of times. And I would really like to commend the union and our former city manager and also our former HR director for arriving at an amicable resolution to this contract. It's nice to see, and I hope that the relationship continues to grow.
Thanks for your comment. Any other comments on the motion? Seeing none by the public? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Sherman,
Yes.
Commissioner Host,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Long,
Yes.
Commissioner Baylor,
Yes.
Commissioner Hoff,
Yes.
Commissioner Nikita,
Yes.
Mayor Boutros.
Yes, Thanks, Alex. Under new business, item B, we have a resolution to approve the settlement agreement of December 23rd, 2020 between the City of Birmingham and the American Federation of States, County, Municipal Employees, Local 998, for renewal of the collective bargaining agreement for a term of July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2023, and to authorize the staff to execute a collective bargaining agreement consistent with the term and condition. With that, I'll bring back our interim HR manager, Mr. Jim Hawk.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, this is a retroactive settlement to July 1st of 2020. It's a 3-year agreement, similar to the firefighters agreement. It's 1.5% a year. And also the increased co-pays in the healthcare by the employees. The difference between the two contracts is that there is an increase in the contribution to the defined contribution plan. In 2021, the city contribution increases from 6 to 8.25%, but the employee contribution also increases from 3% to 3.75%. And then in 2022, city contribution is 8.5%, and the employee contribution rate is 4%. Again, these increased contributions in the co-pays are similar to what was in the fire department. The last page of the backup refers to a certification incentive program, which provides so many cents per hour increase if you have certifications which really benefit the city through continuing education.
Thanks, Mr. Hawk. Commissioners, a question from Mr. Hawk. See none. Public, any questions? None. Okay, I can entertain a motion. Commissioner Hoff, go ahead.
I'll move the suggested resolution.
Okay,
Second.
and seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Long. Comment on the motion from the commissioners? From the public? Oh, from the commission. Go ahead, Commissioner Host.
You know, Commissioner Sherman said some nice things about the people that put this together. Somehow I'm gotta believe Mr. Hawk had a hand in it, and I thank you, Mr. Hawk.
Yes, indeed.
Well, the good news and the bad news is it's too early to take credit, but it's also too early to take blame.
Okay, any comment on the motion by the public? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Hoff,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Long,
Yes.
Commissioner Baylor,
Unmute yourself.
Yes, 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 yes.
Commissioner Host,
Yes.
Commissioner Nikita,
Yes.
Commissioner Sherman,
Yes.
Mayor Boutros.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hawk, and thank you, our chief, fire chief, Mr. Paul Wells. We'll see you.
Thank you very much.
Yep. With that, we go to item C under new business. We have a resolution to approve the corrected employment agreement for Mr. Thomas Marcus and authorize the mayor and the clerk to sign on behalf of the city. With that, I think we have to, Mr. Courier, tell us the minor corrections that we have in front of us.
Yes, there's a memo included in the packet that I think is very explanatory. When we had some issues that we were reviewing, and Mr. Marcus discovered that there was a misnomer in the contract that said he was eligible for the defined benefit program, which he is not by law. He's already taking his pension plan. He's only eligible for the defined contribution plan. And outside counsel who prepared this probably there was a misunderstanding, not being familiar with the contract for the situation, wrote it in error. And so we wanted to correct that to show that he's only eligible for the defined contribution plan. Additionally, in reviewing it, we found that there is a increase in his car allowance or decrease in his car allowance based on the CPI, but the CPI was listed as being 2006, which was his last contract, which was provided to outside counsel, and really it should have been January 1, 2021. And those are the major corrections that we thought should be brought to your attention. And for the sake of transparency, we thought it should be brought before the commission to make sure it is corrected appropriately.
Thank you, Mr. Courier. It was very, very clear. Not being an attorney, I understood exactly how simple the corrections were. Thank you, though. Commissioners, any question for Mr. Courier? Commissioner Sherman.
Looking at this, because we already have a signed contract?
Yes, you do.
Yes.
So since we already have a signed contract, should we treat this as an amended and restated contract? And under the recitals indicate that this contract is replacing the one that's in existence?
We can do that, Mr. Sherman. That wouldn't take much.
And then the second thing is looking at page 4 in the retirement, there's something that indicates in the event that Mr. Marcus is not vested in the employer-employee contributions at the end of 2.5 years, the city will make an equivalent employer contribution. Will he vest or won't he vest?
Again, I'd have to turn to our retirement board, but Mr. Marcus, you know the answer to that? I don't know if you'd vest by the end of 2.5 years.
Yes, I will vest. The initial discussion. Part of my problem tonight is I'm getting a pretty serious echo back in the reverb. The language was added because initially there was a comment made that I wouldn't vest. The outside legal counsel put that language in there to act as a protection that if in fact I didn't, an equivalent amount would still be contributed. I think you could actually remove that condition now because your partner, Mr. Courier, commented that, yes, I would vest, and that was not an issue any longer. That was put in by the outside counsel, as I said, to protect my interests. So, but I think it's been resolved.
So if there are no other questions, I will move the suggested resolution with the changes suggested.
Second.
What about the public?
Yes, I will give on the motion. Any comment on the motion by the commissioners first? See none by the public? I don't see any public here. Okay. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Sherman,
Yes.
Commissioner Nikita,
Yes.
Commissioner Baylor,
Yes.
Commissioner Hawk,
Yes.
Commissioner Host,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Long,
Yes.
Mayor Boutros.
Yes, thank you. With that, we go to item D. We have a resolution to approve the request from the Birmingham City Clerk's Office to create a virtual method. I'm hearing an echo. Here we go. Now we're good. To create a virtual method of celebration and recognition to take place of the traditional Celebrate Birmingham Parade and Party for 2021, and to direct the city clerk's office to create and distribute of a video, thank you letters, and token of appreciation to all board and commission members on May 16, 2021, further pursuant to any minor modifications that may be deemed necessary by administrative staff. And I do believe our city clerk, Ms. Alex Bingham, want to give us a little description of what's happening? Okay.
Right. So taking a look at everything, it appears that with everything going on with COVID, and even with some guidance and opinion by our fire chief, it would be safest if we figured out an alternate way to do the Celebrate Birmingham Parade and Party. So instead of inviting a gathering of people, what we're planning to do is reach out to all the board liaisons, gather pictures, find out some of the big accomplishments of these boards, highlight that in a video. We also designed a really cool token of appreciation and drafted a thank you letter so that we can show the appreciation, even though right now with everything going on with COVID, it would be safer if we do a remote virtual celebration.
Commissioner Hoff, go ahead.
Well, I think this is fine. I think it's a very nice idea. But as I read this, I thought that there was some confusion between the Celebrate Birmingham Hometown Parade and the volunteer recognition event. Those have always been two separate events. The parade is not necessarily for volunteers for boards and committees. The parade is in town. There's the high school band, there's animals, there are clowns. That's separate from the volunteer recognition event, which is held every year. Usually it's a breakfast or an after work reception. So I think this idea is very nice to recognize volunteers and to have to create a video is fine. But this is something different than the parade. And I would imagine we would not be having the parade. We didn't have it last year.
No.
And so I would imagine we would not have the parade this year either. But
right. And it's also hard for me to recreate something that I don't know, because I didn't get to experience the celebration or the parade. So I'll continue to do some research and figure out how to involve the community along with the boards and commissions in this event. I can even create 2 modules for it. So a hometown piece and a boards and commission appreciation piece.
okay. But the volunteer recognition event was a separate event, and everyone who served on a board or committee and past mayors past commissioners were invited.
Mm-hmm.
So if you need any additional information, I'm sure that I know I would be happy, and I'm sure others who have participated would be happy to give you additional information on this.
Okay.
Okay. Commissioner Baller.
Alex, I just want to confirm what appears to be apparent. This is less an event than a presentation, right? A video, something that might be put out on social media, but there's no actual event, time, place, virtual Zoom participation, anything like that, correct?
No, it would just be, as of right now, a slideshow to show off and to celebrate and congratulate and give some recognition to those people that have been working and helping the city and volunteering.
Thanks.
Thank you, Alex. And unfortunately, we are still having to do this virtually. Again, it is what it is, but I appreciate that gesture, Alex. It's very nice. Commissioner Sherman.
I'll move the suggested resolution.
Thank you.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Baller. Any comment on the motion, commissioners? Seeing none from the public? Seeing none. Alex, please call the roll.
Commissioner Sherman?
Yes.
Commissioner Baylor?
Yes.
Commissioner Hoff?
Yes.
Commissioner Host?
Yes.
Commissioner Nikita?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Long?
Yes.
Mayor Boutros?
Yes, thanks. Under new business item E, we have a resolution to direct the city manager and city clerk to work with staff to prepare for the suggested workshops, and to direct the city clerk to continue to maintain a list of desired workshops by the commission, and to direct the city clerk to coordinate with the commission, city manager, city staff to schedule and notice future workshops as needed. I do believe our city clerk also, Alex, is going to give us a little presentation on that, a small one.
Okay. So it's been apparent in the conversation in all of our past meetings that workshops are needed to help us get all the information and ideas out on the table for topics that are important to you. So right now, with city staff's input and what I've heard from you all in meetings, I've gathered topics and tried to prioritize them with some staff input on when it would be possible for them to be ready to present. We're looking to do these workshops back to back with regular city commission meetings and hopefully just schedule one a month. So we've chosen for now the first meeting of the month to be the workshop back to back with the regular meeting. And then obviously we want this to be fluid. So if something else becomes a higher priority, we can bump it up in the schedule as presented based on your input, staff's input, and city manager's direction.
Thanks, Alex. Comments, commissioners, questions? Commissioner Host, go ahead.
You know, Miss Bingham had me with one a month. Seeing as though last year we did one. So thank you, our new city manager, and thank you, our city clerk.
Okay, Commissioner Hoff.
Well, the first one, future and funding of the ice arena. The ice arena, we've already approved. The architect have approved the architect contract to drop the plans. It seems to me that the first one should be the Parks and Rec bond priority list. That includes the ice arena, but that's a much broader subject. That is one that I thought should be the Parks and Rec bond priority list. The second one, I think, is just a typo. I think it's supposed to be the 2040 master plan. I don't know that we need a workshop on that because the planning board is conducting study sessions on this and they have them coming up. They have them at the long range planning. We heard that they are meeting their meetings are open to our residents to comment, and they will make changes or adaptions to the master plan as they go along. So I'm not certain that this is appropriate for us to have a workshop on it until we get some feedback on what the master plan, the second draft. Now, I don't know the date of the second draft, but it's supposed to come back to us. So those are my comments on the first two. I would also like to say, from my point of view, I do not like them to begin at 6 o'clock and we go on with our meetings. To me, that's too long of a period of time to have this every month. I am happy to participate in workshops, but to start at 6 is cutting it so early. You have to eat dinner very early in order to do that. And oftentimes we're here till midnight. And I'm finding that just too much.
Nikita.
Yeah, I think that the timing issue is definitely an issue I think we need to discuss. If we're, you know, as Commissioner Hoff just said, I think we've had some very late nights as of late, and even going to 11 o'clock, which we rarely do, seems like we're going beyond that most of the time. To start at 6 and go to 11 is, I think, a substantial haul for most of us. As it is, it's very difficult for I think all of us to have a four plus hour without a break, essentially, a session. So if we're going to have these start at 6, I think we need to consider a definitive endpoint for the commission meeting, like 10 o'clock or something. So the collective time is more in keeping with the maximum that we would normally do. And then maybe on those particular days, we recognize that we have to have a lighter agenda for the commission meetings and make sure that that happens. Otherwise, I think we need to consider an alternative circumstance for the workshop idea. So those are some concerns and I think, you know, some options to consider.
Commissioner Baller.
I don't care when we do it, but we need to do it. So maybe Commissioners Hoff and Nikita have some ideas of when they would prefer to do it. With regard to the, I disagree with Commissioner Hoff about the Parks and Rec stuff. The ice arena is a complicated thing that needs to be discussed and it requires the time. And frankly, I don't care that we've hired the architect. That's a conversation that's long overdue. Yes, it should have been done sooner. I've been advocating for workshops all year. And so if we're getting to it late, I don't care. As far as priorities for the Parks and Rec bond, they were set a long time ago. When you look at those lists, I don't think the first list and the second list, I don't think that the things within those lists are necessarily priorities. They're just in there as things that need to be done. The first list is stuff that's been hanging out there for 15 years in some cases, Adams Park and Booth Park. And on the other list, it's virtually all playgrounds, and with the exception of a non-urgent upgrade to some golf course irrigation. Both priority lists have the Rouge Trail on it. To me, any advocate of the Rouge Trail should be delighted that it's on both of the lists. I don't think the fact that it's last on the two lists means that it's a low priority in either event. So to me, that's simple and it's been decided, and the decisions make sense. They were made by our prior city manager who explained them to us numerous times, and we had plenty of opportunity to discuss it. The ice arena is an urgent thing because we are embarking on that, and pretty soon it's going to be too late to discuss it at all, and we'll be too far down the road to change course. As far as the other things on this list, April through July, I think there's time for us to make adjustments to that, remove maybe the 2040 plan, move up short-term rentals, or find some other topics. I think there are other topics I could come up with a list of my own, and I would suggest that all of us come up with lists, submit them to the city manager, and let him discuss it with staff and with us, and we can refine the list. My impression of this proposal here is just to get workshops on the agenda.
All right, thanks, Commissioner Waller. I don't believe Commissioner Hoff's point not to discuss the ice arena. Actually, she mentioned that, yes, it will. Can you mute me, please, Tom? Here, thank you. Commissioner Hoff's point is to put the parks and bond and to discuss the ice arena. I believe so. I don't want to put any wrong words, but isn't it what you meant, Commissioner Hoff, also?
I did. I said that I thought the ice arena was part of Parks and Rec bond priority list.
So yes, let's stay focused on literally timing wise, respectfully, as I do echo Commissioner Nikita. We need to make sure we look at timing as we go forward, even on our regular meeting. Commissioner Sherman, go ahead.
I concur with what we're talking about, and with that, I'm going to move the suggested resolution with a modification, and that is have on the days when we have workshops that our commission meeting has a hard stop at 10 p.m.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and seconded to pretty much with the addition of just a hard stop of a timing, and comments on that. I would like to comment, but go ahead, Commissioner Host.
You know, I've said that we should talk more. Well, thanks to our new city manager, I'm not going to use the word talk anymore. We should communicate. And I'm against this motion only for the 10 p.m. thing. But like Commissioner Baller said in response to Commissioner Nikita's thinking on this, we'll do whatever you want. But if we can just be together and communicate, chances are things are going to develop and happen. And so I'm happy to just be in a workshop, or I'm also happy just to communicate.
Commissioner Host, I want to clarify something to you on behalf of the previous commissioners. they're not cutting the time of the discussion of the workshop by any mean. What their intent here is, and I do echo Commissioner Nikita's comment and Commissioner Sherman, timing is important. And lately we've been going to midnight for our meetings. I do believe, really personally, if it comes to me, I'd like to put a hard stop in every meeting. And a hard stop should be no later than 11. And if I see the clock getting closer to 11:15 and we still 4 or 5 things on the agenda, moving forward, I'd like to suggest that we put it off to the next meeting. I see the temper of the commissioners after past 11. It's not the same when we start. I don't believe any one of us would like to conduct any meeting past 11, the normal meetings. And I hope that we can, I'm taking this opportunity just to speak in general, not just because of this item, but we have a resolution in front of us, but it's about the timing. Again, Commissioner Host, I don't want to draft. We have a motion. Timing is important, that we're not cutting off discussion on the workshop that we worked hard to get them accomplished. Now we're accomplishing them. Let's work together on communicating further and go further with cutting the time till 10. I really do agree that it's a long time to be from 6 to 11 or midnight. I really do. Commissioner Hoff.
I agree that 10 o'clock is a good time, only we will not be cutting short the workshop. We may end up cutting short our agenda.
Correct.
And there are our purpose is really the business of the city. And if we can't get it done, what then? What happens then? We stop talking at 10 o'clock? Or agendas are designed for short items, but some items that we don't think will take that much time. Once we all give our opinions and there's a discussion, they go on longer than anticipated. So I think that there are there could be some problems. The workshop is not going to get cut short. The workshop will go on, but what will happen with the agenda?
I think it's a trial and error, Commissioner Hoff. I hope that the first workshop will give us, because we're all excited right now. We haven't done them, but there's a limit to the workshop. We understand that. It's exactly how you said it right. The city business is our priority here, and we have an agenda to finish. I think we're suggesting, just from our city manager, the initial one, to really not to exceed, not to have a long agenda. That's pretty much it. When we have the 6 o'clock workshops, it's just a long timing. And it's trial and error, and we'll see how it goes. Mayor Pro Tem Long.
Yes, 2 comments. As to the timing issue, the planning board has a mechanism wherein they, if they approach their 11 p.m. cutoff, members can move a motion to continue for an additional 15 minutes, which we might be able to employ should it be needed. And secondly, just to comment on the Parks and Rec priority list, that was developed back in 2019 and was actually presented to the voters and all the materials for the park bond issue. So I think its composition is well known and was communicated to the voters as part of the information they voted on.
Okay. Any other comment on the motion? Commissioners, see none? Any other comment on the motion from the public?
Mr. Bloom has his hand raised.
Yes, Mr. Bloom, go ahead with your comment, please.
Hi, good evening. These are not easy meetings. They're hard. It's hard on the commission. The commissioners all work hard. If a meeting starts at 6 o'clock, I think it would be totally warranted to put in a hard 15-minute break at 8 o'clock. I think everyone deserves it, and someone can go grab a sandwich or go to the restroom or do something and not miss the meeting and take a quick break. So I would suggest doing that. And Mr. Marcus is an extremely accomplished and astute city manager. I'm sure that he can work to try and limit the agenda items for an evening when we're going to have an extra long meeting and try and manage it that way. I would caution you against a hard stop, like Commissioner Haas said. You could have some urgent business or something that, or you're in the middle of a discussion and you've got applicants there that needs to continue. So perhaps the other idea presented of continuing the meeting by 15 minutes is better, but I would definitely caution you against a hard stop on a meeting. Thank you.
Thanks for your comment. Mr. Haig, go ahead with your comment on the motion, please.
I would agree that a break is probably very prudent for everybody, because these are very, very tiring for everybody. I mean, a full day and then this. Commissioner's job is tough. I got to say, it's a lot of energy mentally that everybody expends. So one thing that we actually do at work that may be worth thinking about is we actually try and counsel people that bring anything to a management discussion that they really have to try and time limit themselves. We don't necessarily say you are restricted to X minutes, because this was a conversation we've had in the past, but it's highly advised, pick your salient points, stick with them and keep it to a certain time limit. There are a couple of people at our VP level who quite literally set a clock on a table in front of you, and they tell you how many minutes you've got, and at the minute that goes to 0, they stop. You're done. If you're not finished, they're not interested anymore. We might want to have city staff counsel petitioners try to time themselves in advance. It would probably help, because it is exhausting to try and keep up with everything, and the amount of the packages that get put in front of everybody, it's a lot of work. Staff do a lot of work to support everybody, and it's tiring for everyone. It's necessary, but it's tiring. So I would definitely say breaks and trying to encourage a time limit would be very helpful. And I waffle too much. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Haig, for your comment. All right, commissioners, any other public comment?
I have a comment.
Commissioner, I was going to call the vote, but go ahead, Mr. Ball. Quickly,
Could you
please.
define hard stop for me?
Say that again.
Would you please define hard stop?
We're planning to finish. We will put 10 o'clock at the end of the meeting, and if we feel that it's gonna go beyond that, we probably entertain a motion to extend it by 15 minutes. But the goal is to finish by 10 p.m. when we're doing a workshop session.
So.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Alex, please call the roll.
Mr. Sherman,
Yes.
Commissioner Nikita,
Yes.
Commissioner Host,
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Long,
Yes.
Commissioner Baylor,
Yes.
Commissioner Hoff,
Yes.
Mayor Boutros.
Yes, thank you. With that, we go to item F as in Frank under new business commission discussion on items from prior meeting. We have none. Item G, commission items for future discussion. We have none. Yes, we do. Commissioner Host.
Yeah, hey, as a group, with the exception of the mayor, I think all of us have lived here, I would consider a long time. And when I say here, I mean in Birmingham. And as such, we're typical of the people who live here. And the point is we're getting older, and apparently 10 o'clock, etc. The point is our senior citizens should be a major priority. And it's not that we have to have a workshop on it, but we should be mindful that we all want to continue to live here, possibly until, we pass away. There's a lot of people all over town that do that. And as such, our ad hoc senior citizen long range planning services committee, in theory, the legal agreement for the other communities will be finalized this month or next month at the very latest. And we will have an entity that the seniors become in Birmingham for their benefit. And as such, they deserve our consideration in everything that we're doing, whether we can talk about with the planning board, how to keep them in their houses, how to make sure that if they're on an unimproved road, that it's not a hardship for these people, because they have paid taxes here for decades. And as such, we should be deferential to them, because it's going to be all of you people someday, I hope. And in keeping with the fact that this is going to come together this spring, I would like us to entertain putting in next year's budget, starting July 1st, some money for consideration of our seniors and the future of our seniors here in Birmingham. And I would recommend that we consider putting money into our planning department to assure that we get this off the ground. And as you know, last June I tried for $1. Well, I would like to try for $50,000, and it's more to show our citizens that we care about them living here, and we want them to continue to living here, and they've been paying it forward for so long. They deserve our consideration. Thank you.
Right, Commissioner Host, I believe that's that should be under Commissioner comments, but I'll take it that you beat us to Commissioner comments, and you just I can't wait.
I couldn't wait,
yes,
Mr. Mayor, and I'm sorry.
I was waiting for your motion. I was waiting for some directions, but I was puzzled. But thank you for your comments. You will be prohibited from giving any further commissioner comments on the reports tonight.
Okay.
All right. So with that, any other future items for discussion from commissioners? Seeing none. With that, we go to resolution to meet in closed session to discuss a written attorney-client privilege communication pursuant to section 15.3268 of the Open Act meeting, and to discuss pending litigation regarding Troyan versus City of Birmingham and Del Piombo versus City of Birmingham pursuant to section 15.268 of the Open Meeting Act. Commissioner Hoff.
So moved.
Yes. Seconded by Commissioner Nikita. Yes, Commissioner Baller.
Yes, may I make a comment on the motion, Mayor?
Go ahead.
I've never seen us turn down one of these motions, but I'd like to point out that when we're asked to meet in closed session, we're rarely told up front much about why. We get very little information in advance. That makes sense because, it is, after all, a closed session, which I would say is a secret session. Tonight, we're being asked to discuss 2 lawsuits and a privileged communication. And though, I'm sorry.
What did you talk about?
Though information about those lawsuits is probably public record, we haven't been provided with anything. I haven't sought it. I think dealing with lawsuits is a common and understandable use of closed sessions. With regard to the privileged communication, our packet contains no clue as to its content, and it's on items like this that I think the commission needs to be very careful, precisely because we can't be transparent. I say this because you don't have to look far into the city's history to find an example of something that was discussed in secret and then caused quite a bit of consternation among our constituents. And so I just want to say that we should all expect strong justification once we get into closed session for discussing any matter in secret, and that we should all reserve the right to object. And if we do go ahead and discuss something in secret, that we do it only after that hesitation and careful consideration.
Thanks for your comment, Commissioner Baller. Okay. Any other comment on the motion by the public? None. Will the clerk call the roll, please?
Mr. Hoff?
Yes.
Commissioner Nikita?
Yes.
Commissioner Sherman,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Long,
Yes.
Commissioner Baylor,
Yes.
Commissioner Host,
Yes.
Mayor Boutros.
Yes, thank you. We move on to remove from consent agenda. We have none. Communications. We received the communication from Mr. David Bloom in regards to a nonpartisan stance. If Mr. Bloom's with us and would like to comment, or I guess he's not.
Hi, no, I'm here. I can comment. I received an email from the new head of the Oakland County Democratic Party saying that she was going to, that the organization was going to start promoting local candidates in order to probably bring them up through the ranks and in order to retake the state legislature for the Democrats. Many of you may recall during the Northold Woodward issue that there were prominent Republicans coming out for the project. And at that time, there was concern with some people in the community that that the Republicans and the Democrats should be staying out of local political issues. And Birmingham has always been nonpartisan, at least as far as I know. And I would just hate to see, we have enough troubles in Birmingham already. I would hate to see Democrat, Republican, whatever political party you can think of, worried about state or national elections, coming into Birmingham for their own purposes, throwing money around, backing candidates, getting people to vote for a candidate because they're a Republican or a Democrat, instead of the issues that we need to address in Birmingham. So I would ask the city commission to issue a statement saying that these kind of attempts to promote local candidates as Republicans or Democrats for local elections or election issues are not welcome in Birmingham. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bloom. As you're aware, Mr. Bloom, we as a city, we don't want to involve in any contribution of, in their constitution of rights. Whether any party want to get involved with any individual, we are nonpartisan, we stay nonpartisan, but you cannot take the amendment rights from any person, whatever side they sit on, whether left or right. They can support, they can advocate, they can form a PAC and support an individual. We ought to be careful on what you're requesting, but we've been as long as I've been involved, and I know the history of Birmingham, it's always been nonpartisan. That it's a fact. This is how we practice. But again, I do believe, unless my attorney or my city manager think otherwise, we have to be very careful. We can't. I believe we cannot, because you can't get involved in their constitution of rights, who they want to support or not. Mr. Courier, do you agree? Yes.
Our charter provides in two different sections that we are nonpartisan. So
yeah,
the ballots must be printed without party marks or emblems or any description. In addition, the oath that you all taken as commissioners, where you solemnly swear that you will administer the affairs of Birmingham free from partisan distinction or control. So we have by charter been nonpartisan for a long time, and it would take a vote of the people to change that. That being said, it doesn't change the fact, as you stated, Mayor, that these political parties can endorse or do whatever they want. We can't control their rights in that regard. But it does not change what's going to be on the ballot or the way you're supposed to act.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Mayor, I agree with everything that I have heard, and you can't stop someone else from spending money saying vote for Mayor Boutros because he's XYZ party. So you can't do that. But what I think you can do is make a statement that Michigan isn't, that Birmingham is a nonpartisan city, and that outside involvement is not welcome or appreciated. You can't stop it from happening, and I'm not even suggesting that you do.
All right, thanks for your comment, Mr. Bloom. With that, we go to reports. We have commissioner reports, commissioner comments. Any commissioner comments? Commissioner Sherman.
Well, Mr. Marcus has now been here 3 weeks, so I wanted to kind of get an idea from him what some of his observations are. He's had an opportunity to look at things and tell us what you found.
Well, as our interim assistant said earlier, I have been here long enough to be guilty for all sorts of things. It's been a lot of things coming at me from all different directions. Some of it even related to city policies and issues, but a lot of it's been people trying to get reacquainted from when I was here before. I find that to be a really nice feature of returning to Birmingham. And this thing is still reverbing in my head. But I think we're making some progress towards getting some things done. I did encourage Alex to put the workshop issue together. And the other thing we're going to be doing on that is creating some policies for how we conduct those workshops that will return to the commission for the commission's approval, so that you have some format for how to operate your work sessions. And I think the other thing I'd say about the work sessions is I've used them very successfully in other locations. One of the things I think we're doing, and I agreed with the comments that Commissioner Hoff made about business and business meetings. But I think if you get these workshops working correctly, I think you'll find that having that discussions about all these different issues, and I think we can end up having more than one issue on a work session once we get good at this. I think you'll be able to maybe develop some consensus of thought, not necessarily approval at a work session, because you don't make decisions at work sessions. You kick around issues and it might become obvious that there is some consensus there without having to vote on consensus. That then should make your business meetings run more smoothly. And amongst the staff, including myself, I think we're working to try and get our reports to be more succinct and develop the issues so that we frame issues and their resolution to be a bit more concise. And that should help the flow of the meetings. But I think all of us, including commissioners, if I can speak freely, need to also check their comments and whether they're absolutely necessary as we move towards more timely and efficient meetings. That's not to say I want to see you cut off, but the commissioners contribute to the length of the meetings as well. It isn't just staff presentations. It isn't just outside petitioner presentations. It isn't just the public comment, but we all add to that. And so with that said, I'm going to cut off my comments at this point and hope that maybe we all learn from the practice of being a little bit more efficient in our communications. So generally, I think it's going fine, but we have a lot of work here, a lot more than I thought we did. So that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Marcus. Now you can mute me. All right. Commissioner Host.
Okay. I just, I assume you're going to move. I hope Ms. Bingham will move my comments to commissioner comments.
That's, we addressed it. You got it, Ms. Commissioner Host. And I was joking. If you'd like to add any other comment, you're more than welcome to do so. You okay?
Yes.
Okay. With that, any other comments, commissioners? None. We go to advisory boards, committees, commission reports, and agendas. legislation, city staff. All right, now we convene into closed session, I believe, and we will not have any action taken.
Tom, make sure you accept the prompt to go into the closed session.
Yes. Okay, we have 4 commissioners plus. Have a lovely evening, everyone. Meeting adjourned. Thank you. Thank you, Mary, again. Bye-bye.